notification. I wonder if that's one of them. Not yet.
I see myself. I have arrived. Hey, everybody.
You have arrived.
Yes, I have arrived.
I haven't been notified yet, so.
It takes a minute. We're just exactly on time. It's like 2 o'clock, so.
Yeah, but I can't add a comment because I can't get on there yet.
You will. Hey guys, how you doing this week? Hope everybody's having a good week. I had a good morning, so that was kind of nice. Just was energetic today, got a lot of stuff done, dishes, and made stew for lunch, and swam, and everything else, so.
My computer's dicking up. I don't know what the problem is. I'm going to reload this.
That's okay, no one's shown up yet. I'm sure they'll hear that when they do. Hey, 2 people, I see. 2 viewers. It's really windy out. It's like, wow. Really noticed that on the way home. That is very, very windy.
Nope, I have no notification. Oh, there.
Hi, Dan. How you doing? Dan Russen Holt just showed up. Hey.
Took a minute, but now I've showed up.
All right. You showed up too. Sometimes YouTube is a little laggy, it seems.
Oh, it was, I don't know, Chrome was doing something weird.
Well, so, Pandora Love, hello. Hi, Pandora. How's everybody's week going? And where are you? So I know where you are in the world. Woohoo! We have a windy day here. Wind is coming and going. We're going to have another heat event inland. So that's usually when we get the winds out here on the coast. It pulls it in over the ocean and comes in and just starts going crazy. I see that. It's orange.
Jaleesa Bustamante.
Jaleesa, hi. Tuning in from Dallas. All right. So, as we wait for other people to show up, we'll just chat about whatever. Pandora Love says, I'm in Ontario, Canada. It's humid and seems to be having hot and cold flashes. All right.
That's like me a lot of the time.
Hot and cold flashes?
And humid.
And humid. It just really depends. It's one of those things. Dan says, Vancouver, Canada here. Hi. I actually lived in Vancouver for a while. My son was born in New Westminster. Not, one of the little outlets. Hi, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us all the way from South Africa. How's it down there? AS says, hello, I'm from Portugal, the other side of the Atlantic. Hi, nice to meet you. Desideradum says, howdy, you're significantly less blue today. Yes, I am. Apparently there was some setting that accidentally got flipped, and Ian has fixed it. So I don't have to be blue today. So yay me. I'm on the Oregon coast, on the southern Oregon coast, so on the west coast of the United States. Do you have any plans for 888? No, not really. I looked it up and I'm like, yeah, not really.
What is 888?
That's the Lion's Gate thing with the cosmic consciousness raising energy coming at us from the intergalaxy, whatever.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, whatever. I have enough to do here. But hey, I did get some nice rocks. I went to the local rock and gem show and got some really nice stuff. Mindy says, hello, all super windy in Utah. Lots of smoke blowing in from California and Oregon. Yeah, there are so many fires out here. I mean, at least here on the coast, we don't have, at the moment, we're not getting inundated with smoke, but inland is from all the fires around the Klamath Basin, and Northern California is getting in there. Philippa says, hello all, I'm actually working tonight, so I may pop on and off. You're looking well, Siofra. Hope you've booted the shingles out the door now. Well, they're getting better. Nerves are coming back, still having, moments, but it's on its way. Mindy says, I hope all is well on this magical day. Hi, Siofra. Hi, Mindy. Steve R., are you a witch? Will Trump run again? This is not things that I concern myself with. Being a witch doesn't mean I know everything. Pandora Love says, I was harvesting chicory root yesterday. Cool. Jessica says, hi, Siofra. Hi, Jessica. Charity says, hello there. Hi, Charity. Pandora says, it's smoky in Canada, too. Yeah, there's fires everywhere. Jessica says, what are you guys doing for the new moon? That's today. So I'm showing off my crystals today, and I don't know if I'm going to do anything specific for the new moon or not. I don't have anything in particular I need to do.
I have a couple moon-related things I usually do on a Monday, but not anything specifically for the new moon.
And yes, you can see my new stones. I brought them in. Absolutely. Violet says, hello, Siofra and Ian. Jaleesa says, I got some angelite. Yes, I have some angelite too. I got a piece of angelite, like a chunk of angelite. And when I took a picture of it, it didn't show up blue like it is. So that was disappointing. But it is blue. See, nice and blue. So that was one of the stones I picked up yesterday.
Shows up very well on camera.
It did show up good. Yeah, so that's my chunk of angelite. Have you ever communicated with angels or used this crystal for anything specific? Well, I've communicated with angels. I haven't used this particular crystal for anything specific yet since I just got it. But I like the feel of it, and Ian held it, and he said it made him feel airy. Sort of got an airy feel from it, which would probably be appropriate, all things considered. Desiderata says, I'm in Berkeley, California. Lionsgate is made up recently with no historical evidence of ever being relevant. Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of things that are like that. Someone goes like, ooh, numbers. Sherilyn says, hello, Siofra. Hi, Sherilyn. So one of the other rocks I picked up, I have a piece of apophyllite already, and it's sort of an aqua color. But this is a clear piece of apophyllite, and I really like the formation of it, just the different angles and the different crystals and stuff. And without knowing what it is, it's kind of difficult to tell the difference between this and like quartz, because it's clear. And but it does have a little bit of a pink spot on it. On the back side, there's just a tiny little pink spot. And it's kind of interesting that the other one I have is sort of an aqua color. And this is supposed to be grade A, so it's a better quality piece formation. The guy who had the stuff, he had some great formations. And most of the stuff I bought, I ended up buying from him just because. And Jaleesa says, yes, the angelite made me feel very floaty. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I got a piece of sort of a big chunk of moonstone, and it has a little bit of black in it. I'm not sure if it's tourmalated quartz that's in there or if it's black moonstone or not, but there's a tiny little dot of black in that. And I was looking for a few other specific kinds of pieces, but I wanted to get another pyramid labradorite, because I used to use that when I was traveling and stuff like that to keep wandering spirits out of my environment. So I didn't have to, try and talk them down or deal with them or whatever, because I got, if I'm on vacation, I don't want to have to be doing all that stuff. Also, he had a really nice chunk of lapis, so there's that. It's a nice big chunk too, and the really super good quality lapis is really expensive, but this one's got the gold streak through it, so I figure that is, good enough. It's always been one of my favorite stones. I've always liked it a lot.
Got a lot of nice little gold flecks in that one, though.
Yeah, there are some nice
Can't
gold
really
flecks
see
in it.
'em, but-
Yeah, they don't show up so much on the camera, but anyway, lapis has been one I've liked for a long time. Pandora says, love labradorite. Yes, I have a lot of that. And I use it a fair amount, you know. It's good for reflecting things away from you and stuff like that. And I love the iridescent sheen that it has in it. All those stones like moonstone and labradorite, and, you know, they've got that sort of glint, that shine that comes through and hits the light in the right way. Now this is something I've never heard of before, and it's called velvet malachite. And although it is a solid rock and there's no fuzz on it, it looks like it is covered in velvet, and I had to have that. I mean, I'm just like, seriously. I don't know how well does that show up. It's like, it does get some of the color.
It doesn't get the texture. You don't get the idea, but the velvetiness doesn't come through.
But it's pretty amazing stuff. And
also, the color isn't quite as good as it is in person.
Yeah, I really like this stuff. It's from the Congo, apparently. So we'll see what I do with that. So Jaleesa says, love fluorite. It's my favorite. I have a couple of nice pieces of that. Desert Autumn says, could be interesting to talk about how to find and remove spirits, elementals, and other etheric beasties getting stuck in our chakras and energy field. Yeah, we'll give that some thought. Delisa said it looks like a piece of coral. Malachite druzy, cool. Yeah, it is some pretty cool stuff.
Of course, there's a LBRP, of course.
Well, yeah, the Lesser
That's-
Banishing
yeah.
Ritual of the Pentagram.
But then that takes some.
I also picked up a piece of peacock ore. Supposed to be good for clearing all your chakras and aligning you, etc. But you know, who knows? But I like it anyway. It's just pretty stuff. Hey, Marisol, how you doing? So, yeah, there's a little piece of peacock ore.
What we need is more of a light on those things to show them off.
Will
See
that
if
work?
helps. Does that help? Not really.
Okay, not really. And then I got a piece of charoite. Purple's my favorite color, of course. So there's my piece of charoite. And this is like a worry stone. It has like a place for you to rub your thumb in it on both sides. And it's very comfy. I can get that a little closer and get the purple in there. And so, you know, both sides have got that in it. And charoite is just sort of a nice rock. I like it. And then I also got a piece of apatite, which is a nice color. This is a nice dark piece of apatite. I've got some faceted stones of apatite, but it's usually the really super pale, clear kind of light blue kind of stuff. But this one's a nice color. Just get my fingers out of the way. There we go. Yeah. So that's a piece of apatite. And then the last big find was a piece of black kyanite. And so there's my piece of black kyanite. And I have blue kyanite already. I have that in several different forms. I also have some beads that are...
The black has such a nice pattern on it. I don't know if the pattern...
Can you
Let me
get
see
a
if
little
it
closer?
shows through. Yeah. Not really.
All right. Well, it does. This sort of looks like a leaf, a fern, or something like that. They have those little sharp.
Oh, actually, that focused in on it there better for
Yeah.
a minute when you got it real close there.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Oh, now you're all blurry.
Oh. Did I unblur or am I still blurry?
You're still blurry on my screen.
Okay. He's going to cover me up and try and get me back. Oh, thank you. I made that. That's one of my pieces.
So what does it look like in yours? Let's see here.
Yep, I look clear to me.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
All right.
Cleared up after I did that.
Yay!
All right.
So, Cassie says, hello, loves. Marisol says, so gorgeous. That is very pretty, says Cassie. Julissa says, I love your brooch, too. Yeah, and this is one of my pieces that I made with my beading and stuff. So, well, a person wrote in a question, and they wondered about the traditional pointy witch's hat. And I think it'd be good to find out what everybody thinks about that, since it's one of those subjects that, depending on where you look, you get completely opposite opinions. I mean, from my experience, or from what I understand about the idea of the conical hat, and if you look at sorcerers and magicians, they have exactly the same hat. They just don't have the brim. And then, of course, the dunce's cap, which has gotten a bad rap, but originally was, from what I read, who knows if that's now wrong, and things change, but originally was supposed to help to focus energy into the person who was having trouble thinking. So it wasn't meant as a punishment, but as an assist and an aid, and then later became associated with being stupid or dumb or not understanding things, which is when they started making it, the dunce's cap kind of thing.
Right, I believe I read pretty much the same thing at some point.
Yeah, Jaleesa says, isn't the cone supposed to help focus your spiritual energy? And I think so, for me, because, I mean, the cone of power is one of the things that we do in ritual. I mean, that's the whole, one of the points of ritual, is to raise energy into a cone of power and then being able to direct that energy towards whatever the purpose is, if it's healing or, doing something else. And certainly that is that shape, it's that conical shape. I have read there are some witches who are very offended by the idea of it, because they're for them it's a caricature kind of thing where they're just being made fun of. And there's some witches' balls that you can't attend if you wear one of those hats. It's one of the things I always wear on when I'm going out on Halloween in the neighborhood. I have a nice one that I decorated all with flowers and netting and stuff like that, and it's a fancy hat, and I wear that when I go out on those days. So I think it really depends upon individual experience or whatever information we're exposed to. Do you think the folded tip hats mean anything? I don't know. Not enough air up there. I actually like to have it stiff, so I stuffed stuff up in the top so it didn't fold out. So it just all depends. But, random questions like that, that's what I know about it, at any rate. And like my granddaughter pointed out, nobody seems to have a problem with the magician's hat or the sorcerer's hat. So why are they having a problem with the witch's hat? Because we're mostly women?
That's right, I even have a stuffed toy that has a little wizard's hat.
Yes, you have a little, yes, you have one. And I made you a wizard's hat for a Halloween costume one year. And, decorated it up quite nice with stars and moons and things like that, all sparkly. So Pandora says, I always feel more secure energetically when I wear my hat out. And that's another thing. It's like in a lot of traditions, covering up your head is a way to protect your energy, or to show respect, depending on your culture. And, it's sort of
very useful to keep the sun out of your eyes.
There's that, yes, keep the sun out of your eyes, but just, it's like things can't come in the top if you got, you don't feel like things can come in at you from the top. Pandora says misogyny. Yeah, unfortunately, there's still a bunch of that out there.
There was always the old thing in the churches that the women had to wear hats and the men had to have head bare in a church.
Right, well, that's in Judaism.
I'm not sure, honestly.
Catholicism has the veil. Delisa says, any thoughts on veiling? I think that, again, that's sort of, it's going to depend upon the culture, because in some places the veil hides who you are so that the gods don't find out who you are and get mad at you. In other places it's to make other people comfortable, or it's a sign of entering a sacred space. So I think it's going to really depend upon a lot of stuff. So Britt says, hi Siofra, lovely seeing you here. I lost my partner back in March. Do you have any advice for grieving the loss of a soulmate, and if so, maybe some activities, mantras for releasing grief? I am so sorry. I can't even imagine that. It would be difficult to process. And as far as paganism and loss is concerned, one of the things that we do a lot is writing letters, writing a letter to the person that you lost so you can express those feelings, and then burning them and sending them to the other side, reading them aloud, and then burning them and letting them go. But there's no fast way to get through grief. It's a individual experience. Every person's going to have their own timing, and it's definitely one of those things I think that changes us, and it changes you in a fundamental way that's difficult for anyone else to understand or describe. But depending on your beliefs, like if you believe in reincarnation or believe, her spirit is in a different place, him or her, then, you can maybe consider that idea that even though they're gone, they're not totally gone. I mean, their energy, your memories of them are still there. I don't know. I'm not a grief counselor, but I would recommend seeing a grief counselor. And the heart is probably the center of all of those feelings, the heart chakra. But a lot of times when people lose someone, even if it's through no fault of the partner, that they passed, there's a feeling of anger because they're gone and they left you. And so being able to process those feelings and not stuff them or trying to not deny them. So a grief counseling group would probably be a good idea, because they're going to have more techniques and so forth that they can use and help you through what you're going through. Because I don't know what I would do and how I would feel. And getting outside in nature and getting back in touch with life force stuff, just things that are still here, that are alive, and so forth, can, I would think, help bring you back into this sort of thing.
Yeah, and I know I happen to know a few mantras, but nothing that would relate to that. The stuff I'm familiar with are basically like the seed mantras for the chakras, and then the Ganesha mantra, and a couple of the more standard ones, but nothing helpful for you, I'm afraid, in this case.
Yeah, but our heart goes out to you, because, that's not an easy thing to go through. Noah says, feel secure. Emily says, I wear hematite rings on each middle finger and a braided cord I made on my left wrist to catch negative energy and be a closed circuit. I can't wear hematite rings. They always break on me. It's a good idea, though. It's a good grounding stone. Pandora says, I didn't know women were expected to wear hats in church. Oh, yeah. And Ian has responded to that. And unfortunately, change is painful. I'm so sorry for your loss. Pandora says, thanks, Ian. Marisol says, so sorry for your loss, Britt. Yes, it's just one of those things. Journaling helped me the most through my losses. Talk to them. Yeah, that's keeping them alive in that sense. Britt says, thank you, everyone. I will do some more reading on healing the heart chakra and find peace in nature. Yeah. We'll give it some thought and see if we come up with anything else that might, something that will trigger. Starhawk has a book on death and dying. What is the name of that book? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
I'll have to look that up. It was one of the books that was written by other people other than her. And so I had a hard time reading it in the beginning because I was buying a book by her. And then they were like, everyone has good ideas. So, whatever. But there's rituals and things like that in there for people to help process, ritually speaking. There's a chair over there. Granddaughter has just arrived. She's here staying with me, and today she wasn't working, so she decided to sit in and join us, just, being here and listening, and maybe adding if there's anything she has to add. So Noah says, at Emily, may I ask what you did to make the braided cord out of? Oh, what did you make the braided cord out of? Yeah, I use different stones and stuff on my wrists to help block energy and bring energy in and so forth. Oh, that's something else I picked up at the rock show. I picked up two, the ruby matrix stone. one for me and one for my granddaughter. So we've got that too. And I think this is to help bring energy in and stuff. So I'm still checking things out, but I thought it would be helpful for her because having energy and health is a good thing. So Pandora says, I wish you were my grandma. Yeah.
She's a wonderful grandmother.
I'm a nana.
Yes,
Nana. Since it was my daughter that had her, I decided that made it so that I got to pick which name they would call me by. And I decided Nana was the name I wanted, so that's the one I picked, and then everyone else had to settle for whatever they could get. I was there at her birth, so, I have dibs. How old is your granddaughter? How old are you?
I just turned 28 May 19th.
Well, so she is in her first Saturn return, and it is a doozy. So, yeah. Noah says, thank you. Ruby Matrix brings energy, noted. Pandora says, love that so much. Yeah, and I mean, I love going to these rock shows and just picking things up and finding stuff because it's just fun to do. But boy, was my back unhappy with me. I was there walking around for an hour, and at the end of it, it's like, why didn't I wear my back brace? What was I thinking? Because a lot of standing and looking down, and yeah, back's not as supple as it used to be. So that's one of the things that happens. Oh well. Britt says 28 is a doozy. I'll be 29. That's August 19th. Yes.
That's what I'm seeing from this end.
So yes. So
There's a bit of a delay, and then we get the text up.
Marisol says I broke both my ankles during my Saturn return. It was horrible, but I gained a new career. Oh boy, I tell you, changes are never fun. There's always something. Gnomes is here, says I'm a bit late. I'm sorry. Well, you're welcome. We're glad that you're here. Hi. Pandora says I'll be 32 this December. Yeah. So lovely sweater, cozy. Oh, this is one of my fuzzy ones. Yes. Thank you. It's a gold color. It's I like it. Anywho, okay, back to our show, as I'm getting distracted by myself. The issue of getting rid of unwanted spirits is one that comes up a fair amount, and I definitely have a number of videos I put out there to help people figure that out as far as it goes. And as empaths, of course, figuring out how to protect your energy and have the wherewithal, awareness of what's going on inside of your own head to be able to note when things are happening. It's like the better able we are to hear that inner voice inside of us warning us about things or so forth, the better we are at surviving the stuff that's going on around us. So, anyway. Gnomes is here, says, so clairvoyant, cognitive audience, psychometry, and empathy. If I said this is me, what would you say? Well, I would say this is me too. So there. Some of us have all of them. Jaleesa said, I had a dream about a biblical angel, the ones with the eyes, and another one with a cat named Bastet. Any insights? Well, Bastet would be a goddess of ancient Egypt who was the goddess of cats, so that would seem to be a clear connection. Well, yeah, I knew it was clairvoyant. Britt says, by the way, I'm from Eugene, Oregon, and I saw in one of your posts you went to Belknap. I went by myself as part of my healing process and attempted to find the hydrangea, but they were cut down. Oh, no. It was Belknap, right? That's the name of the hot springs?
Yeah, it was Belknap, yeah.
Well, gee, well, good thing I have some of the hydrangea blossoms that were on that thing then. It was across the river on the other side. Maybe that was Harbin. No, Harbin's the other place.
No.
It's Belknap.
It was Belknap.
I'm questioning myself. Don't worry about it. And precognition. Yes, I have that too. Jaleesa says, I remember a past life as an Egyptian queen. It was my first life. Yeah, I remember one as a priestess in Egypt. And wasn't any fun for me. Britt says, they will grow back eventually, but your story of meeting the spirit was lovely. Well, thank you for listening to that. And it was a surprise. That's one of the things I like. Okay, so lately, I've been chewed out by several people for encouraging others to encounter and have dealings with the Fae because they're dangerous, and apparently I don't have enough experience with them to recommend anything, which I thought was hysterical when that person said, experience over books, and it's like all of my stuff has been experience. So I just want to clarify, no one has to have anything to do with the faith they don't want to, and I'm not trying to make people do that. And then the other thing lately, I've had the Christians are back, the ones that want to save you, I've banned several of them in the last couple of days for telling me that, I need to go to Jesus and stop worshiping Satan. So, you guys don't see that, but it's sort of interesting and entertaining. Pandora says, how do you experience past lives? Well, that is going to be dependent upon you. For me, I spontaneously knew 2 past lives from the time I was born. And then other ones happened periodically. Some I did through past life regressions. But some of them were just spontaneous experiences, and some of them came through dreams. So it's really going to depend upon you as an individual. I was in a war, so it was interesting for me too. Yeah, I was in a cave had bombs dropping on it in France, and one of my memories that I had, that was a spontaneous one. Violet says, oh brother, on being chewed out. Britt says, I have continued with the Fae from a safe distance since childhood. No worries here. Communed. Yes.
Commuted with the Fae.
Commuted with them.
They drove in the they were in the passenger seat, of course.
They were the extra person so you could drive in the fast lane.
Yeah, my co-pilot is a she. I can see that bumper sticker. That's what you need.
Hey, someone needs to make that. My co-pilot is a she. SIDHE. I love that. Ban. Yes, that's what I did. Gnomes is here said, do you think cryptids are valid? I don't know. I mean, I've met some people who've had encounters with Bigfoot, but I haven't. And, I really don't know. I think it'd be interesting to find out. Jaleesa says, I gave some people tarot readings on vacation, and a woman came up to me and said, find God before it's too late. God. Sorry, and it was a bit hurtful, yes. It is interesting for that kind of a reaction, but I'm sorry. At this point in my life, I'm old enough and have had enough experience that it doesn't bother me at all. I just look at them and go like, seriously? And where in what universe did you think that you had any say in what I do with my life? I'm old enough now, I've made up my own mind, and nothing you say is going to sway me from my path. So there you go. Gnomes is here says, in my past life I was a Celtic priestess, another a Viking warrior woman, and not sure what, but ancient Egypt in one. Yeah, sometimes you just sort of remember highlights, and sometimes just the feeling. Sometimes you get more direct information. Pandora says, do past lives impact our likes and dislikes in this life? Yes, they can. There's been some research that some psychoanalysts have done that do both past life regression and psychoanalysis, and have helped people who've had certain phobias or even allergies overcome them by having them remember the core experience that gave it to them in the first place, which sometimes turns out to be a different life. I think the first time that happened in this one person's practice, it was accidental, because they had no expectation that it was a past life. They were just trying to get to the memory, and then all of a sudden there's this other thing happening, and they're like, what? Okay. So it can, and according to some theories, some scars, you can be born with scars from how you died before, or have, pains in certain places, like sort of not a cellular memory, but just sort of a spirit memory or whatever of something happening to you from a time before in a place. It can be interesting.
I'd recommend being careful with any past life regression type of things, just to make sure you're up for it. There have been a couple of cases these were like in the 40s, I think, but where people did past life regressions and they got stuck in them for a time.
Actually, my mother had a friend that got stuck for 2 years, and that was not that long ago. That was probably in the 70s or 80s. She had a friend who went into past life regression and came back with a different personality and completely different memories and didn't know anybody. And it took her a while to come back. So it can, if you're not doing it with someone who actually knows what they're doing and is good at it, or if it's the wrong time for you to have the memories and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah. I mean, people think it's interesting, and it is interesting kind of thing, but the important part is being here now and in the life that you're in, not necessarily exploring all the lives you've already had, because, you know, it's like, this is the meat and potatoes part, being in the moment. Violet says, I'm still at such a new place, hearing and seeing subtle messages, that new muscle. I still don't feel, but I have a knowing about things. I experience mostly the elements right now. The planets are next. Pandora says, I have an ungodly fear of water for no good reason. My daughter had an intense fear of water when she was little. If she saw water out the window, she would just start screaming at the top of her lungs. And I remembered a past life with her where she threw herself off of a cliff into the sea in Greece. And I suspect that that's where that came from. I was with her in that life as well. My granddaughter has a fear of water because she can't connect with it. Although today when we went swimming, she was feeling that the water was thick. And that's a good sign. When she can feel the water's thick, then she can swim better. And so that, you know, it can happen. So, maybe you drowned in a past life. It's a possibility. And Pandora says, wow. Yep, it could be. Violet says, like an air video will mysteriously pop up, or the screensaver on my flat screen of all sea animals comes up for water, mountain for earth, etc. So Lisa says, past life regression is scary. I just appreciate the memory highlights as they come. Yeah, and the thing is that if you're unfolding naturally, then the memories that you do need to reconnect with for whatever reason will resurface when you're ready. Gnomes is here, says, I've seen one of my own deaths before. It was awful, but I went in and watched it and made it back out after trying and pulling out too quick before many times. All right. Jonathan says, Ian, is there a way a person can know whether they are prepared to investigate past life stuff? Crystala says, I love you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be practical. Ian is answering the question, I think. Yes, if you become prepared, stuff will start coming up. Personally, I think it's best to wait until it starts happening.
In other words, if you clear out the obstacles, it'll start happening, and then you can like go with it and go with the flow. But forcing things always seems to be where problems occur, whether it's past life regressions or anything else.
Right, whether it's psychic abilities, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah,
Kundalini.
Don't force it, but you know, work with it.
Yes.
To develop.
Hopefully we're not in a greenhouse. Violet says that applies to everything. Unless it does. It does. Absolutely everything. Don't force it. Whether it's a relationship or, you know, an experience or whatever, forcing it never seems to actually turn out well. Violet says, I hope I live long enough to experience the magic before I die. Well, I hope so too. I experience the magic every day, so I'm not worried. That one time I did die, it was like, well, that's kind of cool. Okay. So then I wasn't worried about it at all.
So much of it is just awareness, though. If you bring your awareness to it, you'll start noticing more and more stuff.
Well, yeah, lack of distractions in your own mind helped quite a bit. Jonathan says, thanks, Ian. Jessica says, magic is everywhere. Jaleesa, excuse me. Yes, it is. It's everywhere and in everything. My daughter was telling me about an article that she just read last week about an undersea lake, or not undersea, a lake inside of a glacier that's never seen outside, like water sources or anything. I mean, it's just like it's enclosed completely. in this environment where no one expects life to be. And they created life in it. They found sulfur-based life forms in there. There's no plant material, there's no sun, there's no photosynthesis or anything, but they figured out a way to create a life cycle with single cell organisms that then became multiple cell organisms, and they feed off of each other. And if that isn't an example or evidence of the natural state of the universe, life is the natural state of the universe, I don't know what is, because like that had no outside input whatsoever. And so I just thought that was pretty cool.
That's the one in Antarctica, right?
Right. She thought it was Antarctica. She wasn't sure then after she started talking to me. But Antarctica is has very deep glaciers. They're like 5 miles high, but underneath there are mountain ranges and so forth. There's like a whole, because it's land underneath a lot of these glaciers. So, yeah. So, Julissa says, can you talk about noticing the differences between intuition and anxiety? That's a good question. Yeah, and that's one of those hit and miss type of things. It's like, sometimes you're not sure, but it's usually best to err on the side of caution and decide that it's an intuition and not worry too much about maybe it's an anxiety until after things are done. I mean, anxiety can be a way of your body to try and imprint a message on your cells that says something is wrong, there's something going on, something bad may happen, or whatever, or watch out, and sort of put you on alert, which is part of intuition, because that's like, intuition is not just the mind itself, but it's also the mind-body connection and being in touch with that. Like if all of a sudden you have a feeling, a sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach, that's a warning sign to pay attention to, So I'm not sure exactly what the differences are, except when anxiety becomes an overriding force that sort of covers and blankets everything, and you can't distinguish between it and all of life. Norms is here, says, what does it mean to die but come back and have stronger clairs? I think it means just what it is. You died, you came back, and had stronger clairs. I mean, you're getting rid of some of the ego structure when you die, even if it's only for a few minutes. And then depending on the experience that you have when you die, if you see things and so forth, then that assumption that you must be crazy or it can't be real sort of gets short-circuited.
Yeah, that's my biggest guess would be that it's mostly what hinders people is themselves and not believing things are possible. In other words, it may be that your disbelief in the subject in a past life could have hindered the development of those things. I mean, you could have had those things and you held them back yourself, not consciously but unconsciously, and so then when your past life stuff is cleared out because you're starting a new life, then you get
So Soviet added some stuff, and he said, oops, wrong stream. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm like, this makes no sense to me. Are we talking about the Matrix now?
you gotta watch it with the compilers.
That's right, compilers are like, yeah,
Compile my C++.
that's right. My husband knows what you're speaking of. So Gnomes is here, said, I saw my grandmother who passed when I was 11. She said, not yet, then I woke up. Well, yeah, that seems like a pretty clear indication. So that would mean that your guardians are ancestors. And in my case, I had 2 guardian angels that kept bringing me back and told me that if I didn't stay, they couldn't bring me back again. So, every family has got different kinds of guardian spirits or whatever. And me, ancestors are not one of them. Probably because my ancestors were idiots. I have to go so far back to find one with a brain. It just is not working for me. I don't know. Gnomes is here, says, I have believed in my reincarnation in past lives since I was 13. Yeah, for me it's not actually even a matter of belief. It's just a fact. It's like when you're born remembering past lives, there's no need to believe in reincarnation because it just is what it is. It's just the reality of my experience. And whether or not it's an ability to experience other people's experiences in a different time, or literal you, the result is the same because you gain experience, you gain emotional context and stuff because you suddenly have a richer amount of responses that are now available to you that you can draw on. Violet says, pardon me, pretty please, while I disappear. 10 minutes, I'll be back. Okay. Jaleesa says, I had a reading recently and was told I have a shit ton of ancestors. I didn't know this. How can I connect with them? I don't know, because I don't do ancestor worship. So you're going to have to find someone else to ask that question, because it's not something I'm into. I imagine that you read up on it, about your ancestors, and make an altar and give them some offerings.
Yeah, neither of us really know that much about ancestor worship. It's just a different subject, and we've followed up.
Christella says, sometimes I am having very specific ringings in my ears. I often think it's a sign, but I'm not sure, and I'm not sure what to do after that. Hey, Nisha. And we have Ashley here as well, not just me and Ian. Well, I think, ringing in the ears can be a medical condition, but if you have that medical condition, you know what it sounds like. If you don't, and it's not consistent, it's probably not. I mean, there's very specific
there's
things.
There's all kinds of things. Kundalini will cause different kinds
of ringing in your ear.
If you meditate on the root chakras, supposedly you can hear the vibrations of the letters in the petals of the root chakra, which sound like S, like an SH. There's a palatal SH. So in other words, you get 3 different kinds of hissing sounds from the letters on the petals in your root chakra, and that amounts to what people would call a ringing in their ears most of the time.
And I sometimes get the ringing because of energy that's in the room.
Yeah, those are like 4 distinct hissing sounds, and it all depends. It can come from different chakras, different areas. Anything that goes through that throat chakra could make a sound. So, sorry, I don't mean to go too far astray.
No, but that is about ringing in the ears. And, and you might be having very specific ones. And it's like, it could be awakening some of your senses. So Jaleesa says, I was never interested in ancestor work, to be honest. So there comes the question. Do you go off of some person that doesn't know you, who did a reading, and you decide that their reading must be accurate, and you're going to change your entire path based on it? Or do you, look at it and then decide whether it's what you want to do or not? I mean, people tell me to do stuff, and I'm like, no. And sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, okay, sounds like a good idea. So you have to put it through your own filter and decide if it works for you or not, just because someone says you got a bunch of ancestors. I mean, literally, all of us have a bunch of ancestors. If you want to look at it from that point of view, or we wouldn't be alive. We have to have them in order to be here. I don't know. And the clarity of the person who's doing the reading can make such a huge difference. Could be that they tell that to most of the people that sit down. I have no idea, since I wasn't there. So I have no intuition about it when it comes to that. She says, I am good with the Fae and deities. All right, sounds like you maybe don't need to do ancestor work. Pandora says, what do you think happens when we die? Do you believe in any form of God? Okay, so in my personal experience, when I cross spirits over and I see what's on the other side waiting for them, every single one of them has something different that they're going to. So my personal opinion is that thoughts are real. When you're dead, thoughts manifest themselves and become your environment. So whatever you think is going to happen to you is going to happen to you. Wherever you think you're supposed to go is what you're going to see and where you're going to be. And it can be in the unconscious, not necessarily in your conscious. So the better you know yourself, the more likely you are to be going to a good place. So I don't think there's like one place or, specific places necessarily that people go. I think we sort of make our own kind of dead place environment. I don't know what to call it. But I can tell you, some people are living on cliff tops in these nice old looking houses overlooking the ocean. Some people are living in cabins in the woods, and some people are in little neighborhoods with lots of trees. And, it's like some people have nobody around them at all. Some people got tons and tons of family. So, I base it on what I've seen, my experience, because really it's conjecture, because we're not there. And we can conjecture all we want, and if we're wrong, it's not going to matter. If we're right, it's not going to matter either, because wherever it is, we're going to be there. So, me and my practical part. So, Nisha says hi to you, Ashley.
Oh, hi.
She might already be off lunch by now, but yeah. Jonathan says, is your view of reincarnation compatible with the Hindu spiritual goal of breaking the cycle of birth and death? My personal, no. I'm not trying to break the cycle of birth and death. I think that those of us who are getting and figuring it out, leaving and not coming back, make it harder for everyone else to figure stuff out. And I like the earth and the planet and the life energy that's here, and I want to make this my heaven, if you want to put it that way. And being in a life is my goal, and trying to experience as much out of it as I can. But everybody has a different approach to that. So that's me. And Ian's is not. Pandora says, I'm just curious. Thumbs up. Thank you so much, says Crystalla. Jaleesa says, does that mean if you think you will reunite with your family, that these people would just be reflections of your memory if they didn't go to the same place? Possibly. I mean, that's a possibility. Because if your thoughts are real, if you haven't watched the movie What Dreams May Come, I recommend watching it because it sort of goes through that. And in some cases, the people you meet are going to be actual individual spirits. In other cases, they're just going to be the projections that you've put out there, and what you're encountering in your own psychopomp kind of thing inside your head. Butterfly Magic with hot tea. Hello, Siofra and everyone. Hi. People come up with the most interesting names. Jaleesa says, do some people go nowhere like a void? I hope not. That would be icky. Jonathan says, Siofra, I watched What Dreams May Come based on your reference to it. Great movie. Concept makes sense. Thank you. You're welcome. Butterfly Magic says, some people go into a void. Yes. According to Butterfly Magic. Okay. Like I said, everyone's got different beliefs. Gnomes is here, says, any idea why someone has been constantly visited by shadow people, like all the time for years? Apparently they find you interesting. Or you're living in a place where they congregate and they cross, or you might be on a ley line that they travel across, or, because it could be environmental, depends.
That'd be the first question, would be whether it's where you're at, or does it follow you along if you move to someplace new?
Right. But you could still accidentally move to a place that's similar to the one that you left and still not be completely sure. Use the scientific method and try and figure it out. Charity says, appreciate the new video. Love to tune in with y'all. Blessings. Hi, Charity. So Taylor says, if you could do Hollywood-like magic, what would you consider? Well, I actually did Hollywood-type magic in the middle of a thunderstorm, but that's not something I want to do all the time. In fact, what happened that day was better than any movie I've ever seen. So, but you mean like with Charmed or Harry Potter or one of those kinds of things?
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to start with materializing down a gold bar. If you do that, you have to do that without stealing it someplace magically, though.
Well, yeah, there's that, because sometimes
you
materializing
have to materialize
things.
it down from the Akasha.
But the problem with a gold bar would be that the legitimate ones are like stamped.
Yeah, well.
So you'd have to find a gold ore, maybe. Would be better.
Well, there you go. Make a gold ore. I mean, Sai Baba could manifest ash, and he also manifested several other things. Why not? Our pocketbook could use it. Our roof needs repaired.
Yeah, that's true. Being able to manifest whatever your material needs might be at the time could be awesome. Just like that. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Samantha from Bewitched and be able to wiggle my nose and clean my house. Because I'm not great at housekeeping. It's not my favorite activity. And but I couldn't get my nose to work like that, so I figured that's why I failed.
You know, I have read some of the Indian stuff and Hindu stuff. In the past, these were things from like out of the 1940s and stuff. There were some people that ran across some people who could do magical theft. So, like Paul Brunton was one of the people, and some of those people went to India. So he'd get them to demonstrate what they could do, and he materialized in one case, materialized a shotgun from the guy down the street. But then about 2 hours later, the guy down the street came to retrieve it because this
He
wasn't
knew?
the first time he played this prank.
I
Yep.
see. Sort of like the cat that steals all the things
Yes,
from
I
the
don't
neighborhood.
recall which book that was, but there's some entertaining stories in it anyway. Brunton says he saw it happen. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Gnomes is here said, I moved from Ohio to Florida, it followed me. Okay, so unless there's actually some definite similarities in the energy of the places that you moved, you might be the thing that they're interested in. Marisol says, what are ley lines? It's sort of a word, a term that came up to describe forces of energy that travel through the planet, similar to acupuncture meridian lines that travel through the body. It was proposed that that was the case. When the first time they thought of it, though, they figured it would be all even and everything. I've seen some of the original research, and it's like, sort of like everything's going to go around in a line like this and line like that, and they could predict where they are. But in reality, in my experience, it's more like a bloodstream, and so it goes where it needs to go, and it modifies itself and changes what it's doing in order to bring energy to where it needs to be, or because it's being blocked somewhere else, and it gets diverted. So I don't think it's as like a straight, like you could predict this. And then there are power spots along ley lines, sometimes where the ley lines cross, sometimes in just other locations because of the energy of the area, where the energy is a lot more apparent. And the past life that I remembered when I was little, one of the things that you could see in that life was you could see energy. There wasn't any, you didn't have to have special ability to see energy. So you could recognize a power spot because there'd be this big beam of light coming out of the ground going up into the air. And, ancient peoples built the temples and sacred sites on these places because they had more energy available already. It's like a natural source of power that's there, and then they could focus it and get more done. So a lot of ancient sites and churches and stuff like that, the Christian church, the Catholic Church in particular, built a lot of their cathedrals on older sites that were already there that had been used in pagan times for the same reason. One, to abscond with it and, sort of cover it up, but in others because the energy is there. And then you get other people in there, you can use that energy. It sort of helps to awaken a state of consciousness and awareness in the person who's inside of that. Natural power spots out there can cause some intense experiences for people if they're not prepared, and they will increase whatever it is you're bringing to the table. So if you're going into a place with a lot of fear and anxiety, there's going to be some really scary stuff that happens when you're there. If you go there with a bunch of anger and confusion, you're going to be more angry and more confused, and fights are going to break out between people that later you look back and you go like, what was that? I don't understand that. And if you go there with a clarity of mind and openness, then you can experience spirit beings and a connection to the planet that is just absolutely fantastic, and it can really open up your abilities. So that would be that. As I wander off into my own mind. Desideradum says, I was so sad after I saw an interview with Carl Sagan just before he passed away and was asked what he believed his afterlife would be. He said, nothing, darkness, the end. Yeah, well. Delisa wonders at Gnomes, is it a hag? I guess that's the shadow person that's following him. I don't think they usually come in the shape of a hag, but we'll see. Butterfly Magic with hot tea says, my void comment above is based, whoops, did I lose that? I did. On reading a book by Lynn Buchanan about remote viewing. Lynn B. referred to seeing exactly that. Okay. Jaleesa says there is so much misinformation and your voice needs to be heard. Jonathan says, I think I saw what you call a crawler upside down on a massive tree branch last night. Are crawlers and shadow people more or less the same thing? No. They're different things. They're different manifestations. Crawlers are fairly recent as far as the paranormal community is concerned in noticing them. And they're sort of like some kind of a parasitic energy being, and is attracted generally to negative things. So I've seen them on the outside of apartment buildings here in town where there's a lot of people who are on drugs or are having, personality problems and stuff like that. And they feed off of and then feed it back to them. So it creates this sort of loop that goes into it. And so they're not like the Fae, they're not nature spirits, they're something else completely different. And I'm not sure exactly how to categorize them. But they are odd. Desidratum says, I couldn't stop thinking about Sagan after that. He came to me in a dream and said in the midst of his overwhelming darkness, he heard a voice ask, are you bored yet? He then took a tour through history. I can relate to that. I remembered a past life where I was an earthbound spirit for a while and I was sitting on my grave forever and I didn't know how long I'd been there, and then a voice said, why are you here? And I didn't know the answer, so then I wasn't there anymore. I was somewhere else, and things continued. So sometimes that voice is the thing that gets you. Christella says, can you please advise something for a person who just discovered that everything is magic but is not always noticing the delicacy of the existence? Oh, Gnomes is here, so I'm not a him. Sorry. I can't tell from people's names.
It's a little face with a female face with blue hair.
I see.
Like.
Okay. I can't see that on my screen.
Oh. Okay.
So be kind to yourself. I don't know what to say.
But as far as combining magical practices and yoga, absolutely. You just need to realize that they're two different pantheons. A lot of the yogic practices actually are magical depending on what type of yoga you're talking about there. Because there are a bunch of different types, not only the physical type as in Hatha yoga.
Well, I mean, I did yoga for a long time, and I would have considered that was a good practice because, it helped me with my chakras, learning about them, learning how to breathe properly, getting in touch with chi in the air and stuff, doing those kind of breaths, becoming aware of the fact that they weren't just saying the words, that there was actually a physical reality that was behind those words and stuff. So yeah, I mean, magical practice doesn't have to be limited to one thing or another.
Kundalini yoga and Kriya yoga is interesting, and Jnana yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge. A bunch of different fascinating types that relate a lot to magical practices.
Yeah. Jonathan says, I was doing shadow work with negative emotions yesterday. Do you think that is enough to attract a crawler to me? I hoped it was just wandering about or around. It's possible, but then if you're not continuing to feed it, it won't have a reason to stay. I would assume that would be the case. So granddaughter has left, just so you know, even though you never saw her here in the first place. And yeah, so put my knee over here for some reason. Okay, there we go. Just for a minute. Pandora says, I've been struggling kicking my addictions. They're blocking my growth. Okay, so this brings up the subject of larva. When you have an addiction, you create a form in the mental and astral plane that we call a larva that feeds off of the addiction. It's one of the reasons why it's difficult to kick addictions, because when you start to try and stop doing the activity, that form, that spirit form, energy form, has enough of a sense of its own life force that it doesn't want to die, even though it's not real. It's like something that's been artificially created. And so it does everything in its power to stop you from stopping the activity that's feeding it and helping it to stay alive. And so knowing that sometimes can help a fair bit. And the other thing is you can use an athame and you can cut the cord between them and do other ritualistic kinds of things to try and diminish their power and their hold on you, to give yourself a break while you're going through that process.
And for a little addition to what Desideratum says there, put your shadow people to work like a servitor, it depends. If you're looking at, like, say, a larva caused by, say, an unsatisfied love affair, and then you get a larva, I kind of like the notion of putting it to work, but something like that that was accidentally created through your own emotions and things is more likely to prey off you than become a good servitor. So you need to be sure that it's you don't have too much of a connection to that, otherwise they'll find a way to.
I think that there's a difference between a shadow person and a larva.
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to say, basically.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what they are, so I'm not sure how they would take that.
Yeah, well, it's just the larva thing. You know what larvae are like, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Jonathan says, thanks, it was part of something I finished today. No more crawler food. All right. Good for you. Pandora said, thank you. Wicked Doll says, hello, Siofra. So happy to catch you live. As since last week after watching your she video, I couldn't help but wonder, how can we identify a she? It's not just a beautiful face, right? Well, the she are like a form of fae that are kind of more human-sized and intelligent beings, and they're like a different kind of life form that doesn't have a body, I guess.
Yeah, non-physical, though, they can give an impression of one, or like, yeah.
And they don't all look beautiful, but a lot of them do. I mean, as far as that goes. Their energy is kind of intense. So if it's easy to be around, it's probably not a she. It's some other type of fae or some other kind of spirit. They're aloof. They don't approach people very often. And they don't care to be approached without an invitation. So they would be approaching you if that was the case. And when they do decide to approach you, it's very clear that there's something unique about them. So it's.
And I think a lot of times the way you actually see them depends a lot on the own workings of your inner self, your inner mind, your third eye, all that together. Your impression of them can differ quite a lot between different individuals. Just because there's so many different ways the impressions get through.
So Mary is here. Hey, I just got off work. Happy new moon, everyone. Glad to be here with you. Your question was answered at the beginning of this video, Mary. Gnomes is here, says, shadow people in my case are shadow beings that follow me around, watch me, rarely speak, and vanish usually after they notice I'm watching them too. Oops, we got a bunch of people who started thinking all at once.
Can she make you randomly want to dance? Well, I would think they might.
And I think someone left me a dead caterpillar. Will they sometimes just fly around you? Well, the she I've never seen fly. I've seen the smaller fae flying, and they have wings and things. The she I've met has been like, sitting on a stag and traveling through or standing in my room. So there may be other types, but I think that the connection with them could certainly make you want to spontaneously dance, just because. Mary says, I did a dark moon ritual last night to release a situation that was weighing me down and bring in some freedom. I saw the shackles fall off, and I'm so relieved. Want to celebrate with witchy friends. Yay, you! I always like to see people remove the shackles and move forward on their own, because it should be enough. Wicked Doll says, thank you so much, you beautiful magnetic souls. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Fully understood. Mary says, thank you for answering at the beginning. I'll rewatch when I can. Way to go, Mary. Crowcaller says, yes, definitely. Jaleesa says, I believe I saw a she when I was little. It would visit me every night and show me a portal in the ceiling of swimming faces. She was beautiful with long platinum hair and a red dress. The platinum hair definitely sounds a lot like the ones I've seen. That clear, that very bright, shiny white kind of hair. And the several of them that have been around. I have some that have different colored hair, but those are definitely she, in my opinion, at least in my experience. Desideradum says, who saw a crawler? Was it physical? How big was it? They're subterranean humanoids brought to the surface by fracking mining. They are carrion eaters. No, those are not the kind of crawlers we're talking about. We're talking about a spirit manifestation. Yeah. And they were around before fracking. So you may be talking about something different using the same term. Pandora says, thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate your time and opinions. You're welcome. We hope that our experience is helpful for as many people as want to have it. Chill Baby 5000, I live in a big house made in the 1910s with a few other tenants. Everyone who has lived here has said they've seen ghosts or people forms in the house, but I never have. Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen really any ghosts or anything in ours, though I occasionally saw a phantom cat run by.
Well, that thing knocked over stuff.
You know.
That we thought was a real cat.
That would probably count as a ghost, I guess.
It was a ghost cat. I think it might have died under our house. Who knows? It wasn't our cat. It was someone else's cat or the neighborhood cat. But yeah, not everybody sees them, but you might feel them or sense them, and it just may depend on your level of sensitivity. So, Gnomes is here says, I've seen a woman with white hair in a silvery dress, and she walked towards me in the moonlight, then vanished. Awesome. Sounds cool. Violet says, Siofra, I've been so busy every day. I am literally beside myself every day, swimming in a sea of material possessions, trying to get organized. I miss you guys. Well, thank you for missing us, and I'm sorry you have to do all that organizing. Sort of stuff happens. Jonathan says, maybe 1 meter long, black, spider-like, spirit manifestation out of the corner of my eye, but quite clear. That sounds about right. And they don't really seem to have a face. I mean, they have a head, but it doesn't really seem to have distinctive features that I could see. It's kind of like a rounded thing, and its arms and legs are kind of the same. They're sort of like they don't look quite right, like there's something wrong about them. Chill Baby says, experiences that disturb them, but my place is light and pleasant. Do you think that plays a role? That your place is light and pleasant and you don't see them? Is that the question? I'm not sure. Pandora says, I hear phantom meows. I wonder if it's a kitty I accidentally killed. Aw. Aw, so sad. Desert Autumn says, there's another thing called a rake that's basically a thought form. It's not physical. Gnomes is here says, I have a little girl here, and she often says hi, grabs my shirt, calls me mom. She knows I'm not her mom. My room used to be her old one. She even says hi on calls with friends, and they see and hear her too. Little ghost girl. Okay. I would want her to cross over so that she could get on with whatever it was she was doing, but this is because of the recent move, Violet says. Chill Baby says, yeah, that's the question. Well, I think that the attitude that a person has when they're encountering spirits and other things makes a huge difference in how they respond. I've seen cases that have started out as minor hauntings turned into full-blown horrific experiences because of the fears and anxieties of the people who live there, and they add that energy into what's happening, and it gets transformed into something completely different. So absolutely, I do think that attitude makes a huge difference. Yeah. Jaleesa says, I used to have a lot of ghosts possess my great-grandmother's Catholic saint statues and dance around.
Well, that would Wake you up.
That I would like to see a video of that. That would be pretty awesome.
I was meowing back here.
Yes,
Sorry.
he was meowing back there. He was being funny, sense of humor. Ha ha ha. Noses here says, I've tried. I think she stays by choice. Yeah. Well, you can only try. Desideratum says, thank you, Ian. My strategy is to give the entity shadow people something else to feed on besides me. Candles, prayers, and compassion.
Sounds like a good approach.
Jonathan says, that is Siofra. That's what I saw. Thanks telling me it won't stick around if I don't feed it. Oh, yeah. So cool. I confirmed it is a crawler, a wall crawler. All right. Awesome. Marisol says, do you have any idea what it could mean to dream about yourself when you are young? That you still have young ideas inside of you? I mean, I often dream that I'm having a baby or I have children, which I don't have, so I'm definitely not in childbearing mode at this point in my life. So for me, dreaming I'm pregnant or have an infant, a child or a young child is about creativity. So I would think that youth would be about, energetic mindset, that kind of thing. It's going to depend upon you. Mary says, you got me, Ian.
Sorry. Wasn't trying to fool anybody.
Molly says, at Marisol, question mark. Gnomes is here. Is it okay to use regular sage? White sage is apparently for only indigenous people. Well, I grow my own sage in my own garden, and any sage can work. And if you bought a plant of white sage and grew it, there'd be no reason why you couldn't use it.
And I think the sage was probably here before indigenous peoples, so.
Pandora Love says, how do you know the difference between a dream and a vision had in sleep? It's not easy. Because it's a fine line between the two. So you have to sort of decide for yourself what it is. I mean, it can be, I know that for me, the dreams that I have that are precognitive, which would be sort of like a vision as well, feel different than other dreams that I have. And it's like a distinction between the way that they feel. Like when I had the dream just before COVID hit about, the plane and the rocket and the crash and the wall and hiding behind the wall and seeing the stuff coming in my direction, I knew what it meant and I knew it was a warning. It wasn't the kind of stuff I usually dream. So generally speaking, if you're dreaming about something that you're not reading about, you're not watching about, you're not thinking about, you're not talking about, you can be fairly confident that it's probably outside of you and trying to give you some information.
Also, a lot of times those things will have a particular feel to them that feels more intense or different in some way than a standard dream. Usually there's something notable about it that gives you the idea that it's something special in general.
Yeah. So Wickadall says at Marisol, I'm still learning, so take my advice with a grain of salt, but do you think perhaps inner childhood wounds that you might need to work on? I guess it depends on what she is dreaming about being young. We don't know the context of her dream at all.
I certainly have plenty of that myself, though, that I've been working on over the years
Yeah.
still.
I had a really awesome dream that was about that. I had all the different parts of me, and we're split into different pieces and stuff, and the youngest part of me was the one I had to really win over. And that was definitely integrating my personality and some of the traumatic childhood experiences that I had, and getting that part of me to believe that I wasn't going to let that happen again, and that I would protect that. So, but without the actually knowing the context of the dream, it's really hard to come up with any conclusions. That's why, dreams are so personal. They really are.
Well, yeah, a lot of the interpretation is just really personal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of my lucid dreams I had someone else's dream symbol in it, and I recognized it was his dream symbol and not mine, and mentioned it in the dream. Why am I dreaming about his stuff? And his stuff was poop all over the floor, and I had to magic it away and make it disappear. So
I have a middle finger emoji in here, to my surprise.
really, it is kind of surprising. So Pandora Love says, I've always enjoyed dreams, good or bad. Sometimes they're so real I have to separate them from my consciousness. Yeah, they can sometimes really affect how you feel when you wake up in the morning. They can affect your mood for the rest of the day. Wicked Doll says, I would love to hear your opinion on the Warrens, if you don't mind. Well, what I know about them, I wouldn't have invited them into my house. And I don't know them. I never met them. So, and I don't think that there's that many demons out there. And like I said earlier, the attitude that people have in a haunting situation can change the nature of the haunting. And I would say that that could be a good example of how that can happen. Because they get the confirmation bias that they're looking for from someone, and then it takes off. So, but I don't know. I mean, really, who am I to judge what they were doing since I don't know anything about them? Jaleesa says at Pandora, I feel the same way. I sometimes have trouble discerning dreams from memories. Taylor says, what is a dream symbol? Okay, so a dream symbol is something that you have figured out in your dreams means something, like a car and how it's working can, and for some people, might represent a relationship. So if the car is breaking down and not running like it's supposed to, then that tells them that something's not working in the relationship. I often have places like hidden corners and cupboards and secret gardens inside of closets and things like that that would tell me things about my own subconscious. It's like dream symbols are very specific to an individual and what it means to you. And so I guess that's sort of a basic there. Gnomes is here, says almost 1.5 hours. Yep, we got about 9 minutes left. Desiree says, Jonathan, those spider creature things, yes, I've seen footage of them, but have no idea. Ward and protect your space. Gnomes is here, says, last question, can a headache or allergies bother your abilities? Well, yeah, if you're not feeling well.
Personally, I find them really distracting.
Yes, they can really distract you from being able to pay attention to certain subtle energies and changes and things like that, for sure. I mean, if you're sick and in pain, it's hard to be nice, let alone have psychic ability. I mean, you know, that's one of the things as a massage therapist, and I work on people, and they walk in and I can see they can't see more than 3 inches in front of their face. I know they're having a headache. And I'm like, yeah, you know, having a headache, it makes it difficult to maintain any kind of sense of, you know, like social niceties, because you're standing in front of this idiot at a cash register who doesn't understand what you're going through, and they're babbling on about who knows what, and there's an idiot in front of them doing all kinds of things, and it's like, makes you want to snap. So, yeah, it can certainly affect that. So Jonathan says, thanks for your concern. I think my protections are good. I've done 2 personal cleansing baths since I saw it. Not because I saw it, but because the shadow work I was doing was quite dark. Taylor says, do you know anything about seeing written symbols, maybe unrecognized? Random stuff pops into your head. Yeah.
Well, I once got that vision of that. Remember when we were at the cabin, I told you I saw that vision of this old document with letters and stuff on it that I saw very clearly, but they weren't in a language I recognized. And it had some reversed letters like Russian, but it wasn't Russian either, so.
So Madam Isadora says, what are your thoughts on dream interpretation books? The only one that I actually found useful was The Dream Game by Anne Faraday, and in that you learn how to interpret your own dreams and figure out your own dream symbols, because they are very specific to each individual, and there's cultural differences and all sorts of stuff. So I found that one the most useful. Desiderodum said, as an indigenous person myself, I can tell you that white sage is a gift from the earth to everyone.
And I'm inclined to believe that, and I've been a little perturbed with some of the stuff that of people appropriating things and saying that because we're indigenous we can use that, and because you're not, you can't, kind of thing. But that's just me personally. I feel, you know, the plants and things were there before the people who took them and named them and did the stuff in the first place. So I guess what I'm saying is the indigenous peoples adopted them at some point. How can they say nobody else has the right to do so? But I might get myself into trouble, so I better.
Well, the thing is that people are trying to reclaim their culture,
Well,
and they feel like other people who are not a member of their culture using it waters down the cultural significance of what they're doing.
well,
But I agree. I
understand,
mean,
and they're not necessarily wrong.
right. But the thing is everyone's got an opinion, and you have to decide for yourself what's right for you. That's why I grow my own sage. And we have in the past gone into the desert and harvested sage from the desert and done it in a, traditional way, and used that. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I think they miss the point. I think, in fact, that type of attitude is not natural to the Native Americans who used to believe things like you can't own the land.
So if you can't own the land, how can you own the ritual?
Or how can you own the animal, or say you can't use animal totems or something because they're theirs, when originally it was we honor the land, we live here, we don't own it, we have to be in harmony with it. And saying that nobody else can use their symbols and things at all and getting offended by that is, in my feeling, actually not a true Native American attitude at all, though.
It might really depend upon who's doing it.
I can't speak much to that, though I do have Native American blood in me.
Right. But I'm thinking it might really depend upon who's doing it and how they're doing it.
Well, yes.
And all that other stuff. Like I saw this meme on Facebook where they were talking about the Cleveland Indians and how it was originally named after this, they said, Indian who was a baseball player, and so he was honored by it. And I'm like, he wasn't an Indian. They're from India, and they didn't name it the Chippewas. They named it the Indians, which is not the same thing. I don't know what tribe he was from, but I mean, if they were honoring him, then it seems like they should have named it after his tribe, not after this thing. But that's me. So, okay, so Pandora says, my dad died when I was 11. The night of his funeral, he came to me in a dream and kissed my forehead and left a lip impression on my skin. It was my first experience beyond what is rational. That's pretty awesome and very significant. John Quinn says, this may be an odd question, but I've heard some people use handbells or other smaller bells to promote positive energy or other uses for bells. Have you heard anything regarding this? Yes, absolutely. Witches' bells on the doors to keep negative spirits out. Wind chimes are the same thing. The idea is that negative spirits don't like the sound of the bell and will stay away. And bells are used in ritual. It's sort of like when I use a bell in ritual, it's like a, hey, spirits, something really cool is about to happen. You want to come and take a look? It's an announcement sort of thing. It's like, hey, something's about to go on. Something's coming down here. So, come on by and check it out and join us. So, yeah, there's lots of different ways. So, Mary says, thank you, Desideratum. That's beautiful. Hope I spelled your name right. Jessica says, but plants from the earth belong to everyone. Cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation are different. Marisol says, Ian, that makes a lot of sense. The plants were there before the people. Madam Isadora says, thank you for the book recommendation for dream interpretation. A friend gave me a dream dictionary recently, but it never made sense. Yeah, same here. That everyone's dream with symbolism would be the same. Absolutely. Desideratum says that, Jonathan, might not be a bad idea to get a little container of iron powder or shavings, but you can actually buy it on Amazon, put the iron powder into a salt shaker, and toss it at any threat. Jonathan said, well said, Ian. And even if they invented that stuff in a lab themselves, I'm still going to be respectful while I use anything I want at my disposal and not feel bad about it. Violet says, so cool, bells. Ian at Jessica, I hear you. I agree that a person using aspects from another culture must do so with the proper respect. And Violet says, thanks for sharing yourselves. Yes, and we are now coming up on our hour and a half. So,
How do you spell indigenous?
I-N-D-E-G. I can't do it unless I'm doing it. E-N-O-U-S.
Let's just use the word.
Native. He means indigenous. Jonathan says at Deseratum, it vanished before I finished turning my head. I played cricket in school, but if I can hit it with something, I deserve a prize. Well, I think that you've handled it quite well. It seems that it's not going to be a continuing problem for you. If it is, you have lots of ideas of how to deal with it, so good luck. Yes. All right, so our hour and a half is up, and once again, you guys are great. Thank you for getting all sorts of wonderful things going in our brains and stuff, and I'm glad I was able to share my rocks with you. I'm still learning all about them and trying to figure it out. So thanks for everybody who joined us today. And if you have, send me an email if you've got a question. Siofra's Magic Alcove
Bye, everyone.
at gmail.com. And bye-bye.